Hi everyone, welcome back to Kanuka Home Practice. I'm Megan, and in today's lesson we are going to look at Janu Sirsasana, which is a forward fold. So we'll look at how to enter this pose as a beginner to a little bit more advanced, the props we can use to support ourselves in the pose, and what kind of intention we can bring to the pose in terms of stretching out our hamstrings and our backs through to using this pose as a gateway into meditation. So I'll see you on the mat soon. Thanks for joining. So to begin, if you can just collect and have with you some props, blanket, bolster, and a couple of blocks could come in handy. And let's start to set up this pose. So Janu means knee, and the Sirs part is the head. So this pose is a forward fold, and we're going to set up with the right leg straight out from the hip, and the left leg is bent, bringing the heel close to the groin. And then there's a little twist involved as we line up the chest, the navel, with that outstretched leg. So coming into this position, just take a moment to check that you can sit comfortably with an upright spine here. If you find that you're leaning back a little and it's hard to keep that straight spine, then a couple of things we can do. So the first one is to elevate the hip. This fold wants to come like a hinge from the hip, which means we need our pelvis to be forward. So if you are sort of back in this position, do prop up on the blanket or the bolster. And for those sitting on the ground and those on the blanket or bolster, we're going to walk the sitting bones back a little. So you can just see me doing that now, one side at a time. If you don't know the sitting bones, they are the bony projections of your hips. If you roll side to side, you can feel them pressing into the ground there. So once they're back, and once you're up on your blanket or your bolster, your pelvis is now positioned to be able to fold forward. It's an anterior tilt. So that's the first part. So once we've got that set up, the next part is, let's look at the outstretched leg here. If you're struggling at this point to have the leg, the back of the knee opened out, perhaps your hamstrings are very tight, for which this is a great pose. What we can do is place a bolster underneath, maybe a rolled up blanket, or if you don't have a prop and you don't always need to use them, you can simply bend this knee. And so it's going to look something like this. Okay, so let's look at the other leg now. If the knee wasn't coming to the ground, we can simply put a block underneath. And, just a word that it's really important to take time to get the foundation of the pose, that which is touching the ground, really aligned and set up, so you have stability. Every pose wants to have that balance of stability and ease. If we get the foundation right, then we can feel stable in the pose to do the required letting go part. So always take your time to just move through your base and just check in. Am I feeling stable? Do I need more supports? And then bring in those props where needed. All right, so let's get ready to come into our Janu Sirsasana. So to begin, I like to have my hands on my knees. There's lots of variations we see. We can breathe in and reach our arms up to lengthen our spine. We can have our hands resting down and just lift the sternum and lengthen up from the base of spine. So don't worry so much about the arms. It's really just individual choice. But what we do want to think about is that really lifting up. It almost feels like a centimetre, maybe even a couple of amount of lengthening up out of the base of the body. And then from there, with our inhale, we're going to exhale. And this exhale is really important. It's about softening, surrendering, and letting go of the tension. So the first part as we come into the pose is all about finding the edge. So right now I'm just listening very deeply to my back, my hip, my inner thigh, groins, back of the leg, the hamstrings. And it's going to be different for everyone where you start to feel that stretch first. So just coming back to the people that are sitting back here and maybe have the bolster under the knee. For you guys, you might be working a lot with the glutes and the lower back. So with your knee bent quite a lot, it can be nice to just start here and really listening to the back, those nice deep breaths. And we can start to take a body scan and just notice if we're holding tension in parts that isn't the base or the foundation of the pose. And we can start to let that go. So when we release these tension points, energy starts to flow. The body is now receiving that life force. The circulation coming into these previously blocked parts is starting to give activation and healing. And letting our breath be deep and smooth. And so, you might just start out here, that knee very bent, resting the head. And then after time, you'll find you start to get more flexible. So the props will become less and the bent knee might eventually become a straight leg here. So I'm just again walking those sit bones back. And we can look at the breathing as a rhythm of inhale to expand and to lengthen the spine. Exhales to soften and release. Inhale, a little more lengthening. Exhale, softening. And on for the length of time that we're holding the pose. So just a word about why you might do this pose. So, for all of us, we'll come into yoga and these poses to help open up and strengthen the body. So we can see in this pose, we're opening up the back of the body. So from my heel, right up through the back of the leg, the calf muscle is being stretched here. So especially if I flex my foot, I'm going to feel that more. Up into the hamstring, so really good pose for the hamstring, the back of the thigh. And then we come up into the back of the spine, so the whole length of the back is being stretched and opened. As I tuck my chin, that can come right up to the back of the neck. There is just a little twist in this pose as I line up my chest with the leg, and we've got a little hip opening as well. But I would say, most of the physical benefit here is in the stretching at the back of the body. And particularly when we are practicing a more yin style yoga, we may be very relaxed in the pose, and it's a passive way of holding and of helping the body to open up. So in this way, we're really working with the breath, letting our nervous system calm down and relax, and gaining flexibility, we could say, from the inside out. This is just a style and a way. Another way of approaching the pose is more active. So for this, I can contract my quad muscle. You're going to feel your knee lift a little. I'm going to contract my hip flexor. So that's a pulling in, up, and almost like a cable that helps to draw the torso down, even without using my hands. My core can be a little engaged here as well. And I'm finding a balance of the contraction at the front of the body. So muscles work in pairs of opposites. Contraction in the front, that's front of leg, front of torso, and stretching or opening at the back. And then we want to find the balance between the two, and ultimately integration of those actions, those pairs of opposites, into one holistic way of being in the body. So nice deep breaths here. Our needs, can change. Sometimes we need that passive approach, and the pose is less about strengthening and stretching the muscles, although that will still be happening, but becomes more about tending to perhaps our psycho-emotional self. If we're feeling very stressed and anxious or ungrounded, this pose and a lot of other forward bends can be a go-to for grounding your brain, your mind, and your physical body. So I'm going to talk to that just a little bit more, but we'll change sides at this point. So, to begin about 5 breaths in a pose, leading into 10 or more is a great start. And when you're ready to come up, we're going to come up with the inhalation. The hands can walk back towards the body, and then my spine is restacking as I roll up, and just take a moment at the top. Shoulders relax down, and I'm checking in with the integrity of my alignment, base of body anchored down, connected to earth, an upward lift through the crown connected. And I can take a little blueprint of my body and my alignment here, so that can inform my standing, my walking, and certainly my other poses in yoga. And so when I've had that little pause, I'm ready for the other side. So let's set up, changing legs. Any little movements or smoothing massage with your hands, just to shake it out, move it out. And let's get to the other side. So adding those props back in, noticing if it feels the same on the side or if it's a little different. What might you need to change in terms of props to facilitate that? All right, so the left leg is stretched out, right leg is bent out to the side. I'm going to take a little twist here to line up my sternum, my navel with the leg. And then checking this outstretched leg, I'm going to flex the foot to help open up through the calf already. The toes and the knee both pointing straight up. I am ready to come into the forward fold. So with an inhale, lifting up tall through the spine. Maybe we'll do the hands on this side. So sitting back, breathing in and lengthening up through the spine. A little reaching forward and then breathing out. I'm listening for where the edge is. I might need to have my hands back here. Feel more flexible down here. And it's a good idea to just pause at the edge. Start to connect with what you're feeling, with that deep listening to the body. The edge is that place of first resistance you feel where your body is telling you that's far enough. So we always want to honour that edge. And just be careful for the high achievers and the drivers amongst us who want to achieve the pose, and we might unconsciously be striving or pushing or trying to muscle our way into a forward fold. So in yoga, this is not the way. We want to bring awareness to that and start to let it go. So the way is to find a calm, equanimous state of consciousness combined with the listening. When your body is ready for you to deepen, that edge will move forward, and that's the invitation with an exhale to soften to that next level. So if you get to the point where your hands can reach your foot, what you can do is hold on to the top of the foot and sink your elbows. And you can work with the breaths here over time. Maybe come to the outside edge of the foot. And then it will be finally down to the heel. And the way that the spine wants to come down, so the name of this pose, a little misleading, it's head to knee pose. But we don't want to think that we are just working to get our head down. The spine comes down with the belly touching the thigh first, and then the chest rolls down, and then the forehead finally touches the knee. And if you're more flexible, you could bring your chin down. You could extend the arm to the floor and even hold on around the hand here if you're. So I'm very flexible. I've practiced yoga for a number of years now, so I'm able to do this. This is my edge, but it's really important for everyone to honour their edge. We talk about keeping your blinkers on in class, not worrying about what your neighbour's doing, not competing with anyone, and certainly not even yourself. So let's drop in, encouraging you to close your eyes. And listening for that edge. And for a moment, just playing with making this more yin, with releasing some of the muscular effort and letting this be a nourishment to your inner self in the way that your body is grounded. It's a very surrendered to the earth position. With your head down, you're really grounding the mind. And you can experience too that this pose encourages a real introversion, so conducive to the deeper practices of yoga, taking us toward meditation. And then for a moment, switching to a more yang style where you're going to engage your quad, your hips, your core, and really find a strong support to hold the stretch and the release of the muscles at the back of the body. You can ground your bent leg, pressing the right knee in this case towards the earth. And if you are practicing in a more yang way, of course you want that yin aspect to be there as well. So softening away any excess tension, perhaps from the face, the forehead, the jaw. And then let's come into a nice blend of the two. And for a moment, just grabbing your blocks and placing one block, or if you're a bit higher up in the pose, two, and just resting your forehead onto the top of the block. So you might have it stacked like so, or maybe just need the one on the highest or the middle point. And I want you to just rest this at the center of the forehead and allow a little bit of weight to come down. So a gentle pressure onto the third eye region. And we're going to continue to be tuning to the breath and keeping the inner awareness. So just to speak to how this kind of pose, which often features towards the end of a yoga class as the practice starts to descend and cool down and maybe move towards breath work, meditation in some instances. So as we internalize awareness, as we connect deeply to the breath, we can start to experience moving from a purely physical consciousness, aware only of our physical body, to becoming more aware of our pranic body, maybe energy flow in the body, and certainly our breath. As we hold awareness internally, we can notice the workings of what we can call the lower mind. So we're watching our thought as a way to be free of that thought, holding our center. This is called the witness. And then we can find after a certain time, this is the science and the art of yoga, that we come into a new space internally that is very quiet, very still, and we can start to access what's known as the Vignamaya kosha. And so this block gently pressing on the forehead is gently stimulating what can be called the third eye region, which relates to this level of consciousness, this tuning into the wisdom body. So as you internalize awareness, you're going to journey deeper and deeper into the self and maybe access this level. So this is where the insight comes from, realization comes from, where we can get answers to questions we may have or issues or problems that need solving. So just knowing that this can be an intent for your practice is to sort of journey really deep into ultimately finding your true center. And as you go on this journey, you will reach these deeper states of awareness. And certainly the third eye chakra can become activated, and you'll start to experience ability to have insight and dialogue with your wisdom self. And this pose can also, the intent can be for healing, for strengthening your quads or stretching your hamstrings. So just knowing and thinking when you start, what is your goal? And along the way, maybe that goal can change as well. And this will help you determine how long to stay in the pose, what props or what setup you'll need. So let's take a final slow deep breath in. Nice long exhalation. And as you breathe in, pressing down through whatever's touching the ground and rising with that inhale, restacking the spine, we come all the way up and nice balance between earth and sky, your body connected at base, an upward lift through the crown. And then we're going to cross the legs and take a seated back bend just to counter stretch the body. So resting your hands behind, start to shift the weight into the hands. And when you're ready, start to lift the chest. You can keep your chin tucked if there's any issues with the neck. Let the head roll back. We want to try and take at least one deep inhalation here. And on the exhale, coming back. So always important to take a counter stretch after a forward bend. We're going to take a backward bend and so on. So that is Janu Sirsasana, head to knee pose. We've done both sides with props and looked at the different reasons you might come to this pose, from purely physical to as a gateway and a pathway into meditation. So thank you for joining me today. Enjoy your practice. Namaste.